And hello, and welcome back to another episode of NY Queen Unfiltered. And today's guest is Julie Laughlin Ayers of Breed Capital Planning and Divine Abundance. And I'm glad to have you here with me, Julie.
Thank you, friend. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, definitely. So I wanted to bring you on because we are in a new fiscal year,
Mhm.
and it's 2026, and a lot of us are going crazy with inflation and not being able to budget and living paycheck to paycheck and not really having any savings in today's economy. So that's why you're here to kind of give us some guidelines and some tips and advice on how to do that.
Awesome. Today, I'm actually going to use myself as the example because
Hmm.
I think that could be very helpful to a lot of people. And I'm going to take a step back and just say, I'm going to show everyone grace because times are some of the most challenging economic times that we've seen in a long time. However, I think if you can be intentional with your money and actually have a plan for yourself that's aligned with what you really want, you set yourself up for greater success. We're not in a position anymore where we can walk around without some type of plan. You definitely need a strategy and a plan to be successful today. I
I
can say that.
agree.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that working with people like myself and my business partner is only for the super wealthy. That's not true. We'll work with anybody. And I think it's important to note that whatever you're doing, it's important to have some type of financial plan, even if it's something you just want to work on by yourself. But sitting down and really getting clear with what are you trying to accomplish in 2026 that is really aligned with who you are at the core. And let me give you an example, Nicole. When I ask people, like, so what's your goal in working with us? Sometimes they'll tell me things that they think I want to hear. And I'm like, oh no, this is not about me. This is about you. And I'll say, no, really, what do you want to do? Because they'll say something like, oh, I want to retire at 60. And I'll say, well, why not 59? And a
Hmm.
lot of times it's like deer in the headlights, and they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, is that really what you want? Because not only do I want to know how you want to retire, but we also want to know how you want to live today.
Yes.
So you and I were chatting before the show, and I
Hmm.
shared with you that I hit a major milestone. Now, this milestone that I hit did not come easy, and it did not
Hmm.
come overnight. So it took
Hmm.
careful planning on my part.
Yeah.
And what Nicole had asked me is, how are you doing with your plan this year? And I said, I've been working on it for almost 20 months. So it's been past a year. It's been over a year. It's 18 months this took me. But
Yeah.
I strategically wanted to pay off a high interest loan that we had that I had taken out when I started a couple of my businesses. And I no longer wanted to make that payment because I felt like I was going nowhere, which a lot of you can relate. It's different. It was a loan, but similarly with credit cards, if it's a high interest, you feel like you're never going to catch that. And then that
Yeah.
just becomes a very toxic feeling, right? So
Hmm.
one thing to think about and a place to start is number one, getting clear with what your goals are. How
Hmm.
are you trying to live in 2026? And what's going to bring you the greatest joy? So for me, it was eliminating high interest debt. That was what I wanted to do in actually 2025. So I
Hmm.
sat down and I created a plan and I decided to audit my expenses, which is always fun. But I actually I only spend on one card. I'm kind of disciplined that way, where I only use one
Hmm.
card for a lot of my business expenses. And then I have one card for personal. Well, I took those two cards and I decided there was three apps that I had that I wasn't using. I turned those all off. That recaptured $60. I decided to have coffee at home for 12 months, and I would only get coffee out if I was with a client. So I put
Hmm.
a new rule on myself. That saved me, believe it or not, $100 a month. Then
Wow.
then I was able to decide I was going to eat at home 98% of the time, and I would only go out to dinner one time a month. That saved me $400 a month.
Wow.
I cut two other memberships that I had um, for $100, and I think that recaptured right there is about $660 a month that I was able to save.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
Yeah, instead of letting that money just sit in your checking account where it can just go out the door, I
Mm-hmm.
purposely took it and moved it into um, a savings account. And then my savings account fed a money market account that was making interest. So not
Wow.
only did I start to save money, but I took the money and I started to put it into a vehicle that would actually give me a return on the money I was saving. And I was methodically doing this every single month.
That's awesome.
In addition to that, is I had a lower interest line of credit. And I said, okay, what if I leveraged this lower interest line of credit and took out 20,000 out of that lower interest line of credit and applied it to this big debt, and then with the recapture of my money and having paid off that debt, I can then hyperpay that 20,000 back very quickly. So that's actually what I did. And it sounds a little bit complex, but if I showed it to you on paper, it would look very simple.
Uh-huh.
By doing that, I number one paid off $31,880.
Wow.
And I was able to take 660 a month, and for 18 months I saved 11,880 plus the 20,000 I pulled from another source. I paid off 31,880, and then the recapture is that high interest note I was telling you about that I was paying that was killing me was
Uh-huh.
$900 a month, plus I paid off my car in the midst of all of this. So I no
Wow.
longer have a car payment, and now I have $1,200 a month to pay off the 20,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So those are some moves to do, but that takes thought. Didn't come up with that just randomly. I really thought that through, Nicole, and
Yeah.
I made strategic moves and pivots. What I also did, and what a lot of people I think are looking at right now, Nicole, is how can I increase my money too? So not
Mhm.
only how do you pay down debt, but how do you bring in more income? You
No,
know, this
definitely.
this is a gig economy. There's people picking up second jobs, all kinds of things. What
Mm-hmm.
I actually did is I actually opened a third business with a partner. She's out on the West Coast, and we are offering, and it actually feeds my main business, but it's divorce coaching. So it's something
Mm-hmm.
that's near and dear to my heart because
Yes.
you've heard my story before, how I lost the majority of my net worth in my divorce
Mm-hmm.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
So what's near and dear to my heart is helping other people with their divorce and making
Mm-hmm.
sure that they come out of that hole and not,
Yeah.
decimated like the way I was. New York State has changed some laws too in regards to divorce to make it more equitable and equal for both
Yeah.
parties. And that has just happened this past year. So,
I think that's very important though, to have somebody to coach you through that process because a lot of people, they're like, I'm getting a divorce and they don't know what all goes into that.
yeah,
They don't know if they're gonna lose their house or if if they have to sell it. People they just don't know. They don't know what's gonna happen with their finances or
no.
anything. So I think that's a great thing that you're doing. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think that people need you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's cool about what we do is we do offer a complimentary consult. Like if someone just has a question that they just need answered, they don't know where to turn to, you literally can go to our website, breathecapitalplanning.com. There's a link right to our Calendly. You can schedule a call with us and
Mm,
it's at no charge. We
yeah.
want to be in service to people, and we want to help people. Like, I don't want to see people be stuck and stressed out and frustrated. And life is short. If I've learned anything in the last couple of years losing key people in my life, it's that you don't know how many days you have here, and you want to live it as healthy and as happy as you can.
Mhm.
And money is energy; it comes and goes, right?
No, it does.
You and I
It
have talked
definitely
about
does.
this a lot,
Yeah.
so it isn't it isn't I know a lot of people think it defines you. It doesn't define you, who you are.
No, it does not.
It does not define who you are. It doesn't mean that if you're going through a struggle, it doesn't mean anything about your character. There's all kinds of things that go into money struggles. There's divorce, there's illness, disability, and getting sick. Unfortunately, Nicole, is the leading cost of bankruptcy in America.
No, it's true.
Yeah, because what
I see
happens
it
if
all
you
the
become
time,
disabled and you
even
can't
with
work?
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, definitely. Even with people who, they come in, they had a business and Now they have cancer. They were the breadwinner.
Yep.
They didn't have certain things set up.
Yep.
And now, all their medical costs are being, eaten away because I mean their money is being eaten away by medical costs.
It's
And as a
unbelievable.
result, they have to look at now, oh my God, do we sell the house? We
Yep.
have to downsize. We have 3 cars. Now we have to go to one. We can't afford it. Got to
One
pay
of
this
the
bill.
biggest things, Nicole, you're so right. In a especially with business owners, I drum this. They've heard this from me nonstop. Any of my business owner clients, like I really believe in protecting your risk. If you can't self-insure, meaning if you don't have enough money to cover yourself, God forbid you can't work for a year or two, if you don't have that kind of cash reserves, you definitely need to transfer that risk to an insurance carrier. And disability insurance is very important. It's probably more important than life insurance. Life insurance is also important, but disability insurance is critical, especially for a business owner, like you said, because if they can't do the work, they will not get paid.
No,
Um,
it's true.
mhm, yeah.
You
So
can't do
those
the
are
work, you won't get paid, and there's nobody coming to save you.
no, there isn't.
No,
But that's why
nobody.
thinking these things through when you're working with someone that's actually going to ask you these questions
Mhm.
is incredibly valuable.
Yes, yes. And so, a single mom comes to you, maybe working, maybe making about $2,500 a month, right? Can
Yep.
you help her save money? Can you
Yes.
help her find ways to strategize to
Mhm.
save money?
Yeah, I would say one of the gifts that I've been given on this planet, this time in my life, is my forensic abilities. It's my
Yes.
ability to look at someone's budget real quickly and be like, oh, you know what? Did you know that you could save money here with this? And it could be something like auto insurance. And the reason I know that is because I shop that nonstop for my clients. So I'll ask them, do you have a clean driving record? Do you have any tickets? Like, what's that look like for you? And if the answer is yes, I'll be like, you're paying way too much in that category. And the reason I know that is because we see thousands of budgets every single month.
Hmm.
So it's like, let's recapture any dollars that we can. So I don't leave any stone unturned. We actually go through an audit process where we sit down with you and we go through all of your monthly spend. Like, what are your bills? How much money's coming in? How much money's going out? Where is money going for savings? Is it going to 401k? Is it going to a Roth? Are you not saving in those categories? Sometimes what I find is that people are contending with toxic debt, like really high interest debt. At the same time, they're putting money into retirement plans. And if they would just shift that slightly, just by a couple percentage, they could gain more dollars to pay off their debt quicker.
Wow.
So those are things that people just go on this we go on autopilot with our money. It's fascinating in America. Like we get everything delivered to us a lot of times, Amazon, like we just are not cognizant of
Walmart.
we don't know the dollars that are going out because we're busy surviving. I'll be honest with you. We're busy. You know, I was a single mom. I know what that life is like. You're
Hmm.
busy keeping your head above water and you've got responsibilities with your kids. If your kids are in sports, that's super expensive and
Yeah.
time consuming. It's unbelievable. So
Yeah.
you're just keeping your head above water. So that's why it's good to get a second set of eyes on
No,
what you're doing.
and you're so right. You're so right. A second set of eyes is always a good thing because you'd be surprised. I was just telling some of the ladies at work because I got caught up with the whole ordering out. And I was like, oh my God. Like I'm blowing through money like crazy. I'm like, I can't order out with you guys anymore. So I've been
Yeah.
bringing my lunch and
Yep.
it saved me. I want to say I've noticed an extra $350 in my pocket just
Absolutely.
from not ordering out. So
I did
you're
an audit
so
with
right.
a young couple recently that
Mhm,
wanted a house, right? They were living
mhm.
in an apartment. We looked at what they were doing. Like they love coffee shops. I said, guys, can you do a coffee shop like twice a week versus every day? Can you make that change? And maybe we'll invest in some good materials to have at the house so that you can still enjoy coffee together. I don't want to take that away from you, but like, let's limit our time out. And listen, we recaptured $850 a month, a
Wow.
month. And I
Just
was,
on coffee.
yeah, between the two of them, they were going out all the time with their friends to coffee. It's what they did. And then together they would go out. So they were going to coffee every single day. Yeah,
That's
crazy.
crazy. But it
Yeah.
happens though. It
Think about
happens.
it. Even $10 a day, 30 days, that's $300.
No,
Adds
you're
up.
right.
Yep.
It does. It adds up. And that was my thing. I was like, I can't believe that I was spending this much money on eating out. And then I want to be complaining about, oh, I think I'm gaining a little weight. You think you're eating out like every day with the girls at work? What do you think is going to happen?
My son said that, he's been at college and he's a wrestler this past year.
Yes.
And he said, Mom, the key to controlling your weight, he's like, I learned this. And because he has to control his weight for wrestling, is
Mm-hmm.
when you eat at home and you control how the food is prepared. And
No,
I was like,
definitely.
okay, like it took me years of me saying this to you, and you finally did it. He believed it because he was doing it for himself, and he was
Yes.
cooking for himself and his roommates at college. And he also realized how expensive food was. It's like,
Yeah.
man, you weren't kidding. So he did things like he went to a farmer's market for his vegetables and went right to the source for the meat. They actually went
Mm-hmm.
right to a farmer, and they're
Oh,
blessed to get
wow.
organic food
Yeah.
at
I
like
love the farmer's market.
half the price of a grocery store.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It is so true. So, what advice, say I come to you
Mhm.
and I come to you with $1,000, where would you suggest that I put my money?
The first thing that we want to make sure is that you don't have a lot of toxic debt.
Okay.
There's good debt and there's toxic debt. Toxic debt is
Mm-hmm.
like high interest credit cards. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want that. So if we don't have that, let's assume you don't have that. And let's assume, do you have any savings other than the 1,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have savings, what I ideally, so number one, we want to get rid of toxic debt. If you have a mortgage, we don't consider that toxic because it's backed by a property. It's backed by your actual house.
Okay.
Cars are actually backed by the car itself. So those aren't terrible things. And those are things that we need to live. You need housing, you need transportation in America. So people also ask me about student loans. Is that considered toxic? Well, no, because with that education, you're able to get the position that you have. So those are things that we can contend with continuing to pay. And if you had 1,000 and you had enough cash reserves, so we like you to have 3 to 6 months of your bills set aside in cash somewhere, whether that's in a savings account, in a high interest yield savings account, or in a money market. We want you to have 3 to 6 months of cash reserve. So, say your bills are $3,000 and you have $9,000 set aside. It's really going to depend on what your earnings are, like where your income is. If you're younger and your income is going to grow and get much larger as you go along the trajectory, we may start you in something like a Roth IRA. If
Okay.
if you're older and more established and you're at your highest earning years, you may need the deduction of the 401k qualified money. So we may do something different with those dollars than we would for a younger person. So every person's variables determine what we're going to do. So we look
Okay.
at everything, but we follow a series of steps. My partner and I have built something called the Guide to Building Wealth. And we've talked to a trademark attorney about trademarking this process because it's a series of steps that if you follow them, Nicole, we know it sets you up for long-term success.
Oh, wow.
If you do these steps out of order, it can really get you into a hot water situation. I'll give you an example. Um, Say you were putting a bunch of money into your retirement, but you had like $40,000 in high interest credit cards and you're
Okay.
never making progress. And this interest rate is just growing and it's just it's turning the 40 into 50 and 50 into 60. You know, the dollars that you're making in the market are not going to keep up with the interest rate that you're being hit with the debt. So we would actually tell you to try to attack the debt, get rid of the debt or get the debt down much lower before you continue to hyper save in like a retirement vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things to consider.
Okay.
So I guess it's hard to answer your question because everyone's variables they'll determine what our recommendation are. And everyone's
Okay.
unique. Everyone's unique. So
Okay.
everything's custom that we do. Nothing, I mean, we have certain recommendations that we make based upon this order of operations that we follow. But as far as like specific recommendations, it's based upon your very specific variables.
Okay.
which yours are going to be different than mine, and mine are going to be different than yours.
Hmm. No, I get that. Everybody's situation is different. So you got to treat it as such.
Yeah.
What is your take on insurance policies like term versus whole life
Yeah. So
insurance?
I think they both have a place where they're applicable. It just depends
Hmm.
on what was the intention and what was the reason you took it out to begin with, right?
Hmm.
So for instance, I'll give you a for instance, if we have a young couple that, has really young children, and they're not in a position where if something were to happen to one or the other of them, that they could stay and maintain their standard of living in their house, we may suggest, especially if they're budget conscious, if they don't have a lot of discretionary dollars, that might make sense to start in a term policy because you need a large death benefit for the longest period of time, but you may not have the dollars to fund like a whole life policy because you may just not have the discretionary dollars at this point in your life. What you might want to consider is a term policy that's got a long conversion rate, because a lot of these term policies, if they're with a mutual company like a Mass Mutual or Northwestern, they will offer long-term conversions, which means they're called extended conversion periods. It's called ECPs. And you can have term insurance, but you can have up to the full term to convert those. So it's very
Okay.
specific. Not all term policies are like this. A lot of terms, say you have just a regular term 20,
Hmm.
that conversion is normally only 10 years. So you only have 10 years to convert that from term to whole life.
Hmm.
The cool part about converting is that you only get underwritten once, meaning you only go through the exams and all of that one time.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool, meaning you don't have to go through underwriting again, because as we get older, our health can change. So
No,
it's
it's
really
true.
important. Like if you go through underwriting to only have to go through it one time,
Hmm.
things of that nature. The cool part about cash value whole life is that it builds a living benefit for you, meaning that your dollars are doing two things. You get a death benefit, God forbid that you pass away, but then there's cash value that's building inside of that.
Hmm.
And most of the carriers that I represent, the rate of return has been really quite nice. The rate of return has been in the range of 5 to 6%.
Okay.
And the cool part about it is that it's not exposed to market can, it's not exposed to the stock market. This is separate in a way. It's an account that's building interest and getting dividends, but it is not tied to the stock market.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
There are other insurance products out there called IUL and VUL. IUL is a universal life, index universal life, and a VUL is a variable universal life. Our philosophy in our business is that if you want stock market exposure, we would do that in a Roth or a non-qualified investment account or a traditional IRA, but we would not do that in your insurance. We want your insurance to have more of a guaranteed component to it,
Hmm.
because we're using these as different levers within your insurance plan and
Hmm.
your cash value. If we have a guarantee with that, that allows us to take more risk in your market assets.
Now, for someone in their early 20s or 30s, what are some important actions that they could take with their finances?
Yeah, 20s and 30s, like important things to think about are getting debt free as soon
Hmm.
as you can. Like, as far as, and again, there's different levels of debt, but I would say, paying off your credit cards in 30 days if possible. Don't live beyond your means, meaning don't put things on your credit card that you can't pay in a 30-day cycle, because you will never catch that interest rate. So it's an important thing to learn young so that you don't contend with it when you're 40, 50, and 60 and trying to retire.
Yeah.
Another piece would be to have some cash reserves, have 3 to 6 months in cash reserves. The next thing is going to be taking a look at, life insurance. Is that applicable in your situation? Disability insurance. If you're a single person, you're living on your own, there's no backup plan, meaning nobody's going to come and save you. Should you be looking at a disability policy because God forbid you can't work? you potentially could lose your apartment, you lose your house, lose your car. So like thinking about things of that nature. And then it's never too early to have some type of basic will,
Mm-hmm.
set up for yourself. Um, you can always change that. Like you can start to work with an estate planning attorney in your 20s, 30s, like I did. I had to because we owned property and we owned houses and we had a business and then we had a child. So,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, it made sense in my early 30s to get all of that taken care of. And then you just change it as you need it, right? Like you just call up your lawyer and you're like, hey, I've had some life changes. Like you get divorced, you need to make changes. Another
Mm-hmm.
important thing to consider as part of the divorce, since I just brought that up to consider, after your divorce is final, you're going to want to make sure that you change your beneficiaries. And if
Oh
you
yeah,
have,
that's important.
yeah, if you have a young child, you're going to want to make sure that you have a trustee of the money and then you have a custodian. So the custodian actually cares for the child, and the
Mm-hmm.
trustee of the money is actually managing the money in the trust.
Yeah.
So those are things
Um.
to think about as a younger person. And
Mm-hmm.
also, you may want to look at some type of retirement beyond, you know, the traditional 401k. You may want to look at other things, other assets. I can tell you, just using my young person as an example, my son,
Mm-hmm.
like he already has cash value life insurance because he's got me as a mom. So he
Mm-hmm.
got one when he was 5 and a bigger one when he was 13. The cool part about starting cash value life insurance for children is if they're under 16, they don't have to go through underwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as their health is relatively normal, they would get um, underwritten. They would get okayed,
Mm-hmm.
and then that will build over time. Like that cash will be there for him over time. The intention and spirit behind that for him is he wants to own his own company someday. So I'm building a nice, actually pretty significant nest egg for him by the time he's 30 that'll be there for him.
Oh wow.
I can sign over
And
ownership
that's
to
how
him.
you build wealth, people.
Yep. And also let's see what else. He has his own investment account that he manages.
Mm-hmm.
Came to us right before we went to college and he said, guys, I'm gonna take, I don't know, $3,000 and I'm gonna see how I do
Mm-hmm.
trying this on my own. But I want, mom, you and your partner to take the rest and I want you to manage it for me and, get me, extra bound of returns. He's pretty okay with risk, much
Yeah.
more so than I am. I'm much more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we, had a meeting with him. He's 20 years old. At this point,
Yeah.
he can manage his own things. He
That's
also
awesome.
keeps cash reserves
Mm-hmm.
um, and things of that nature. He has not been able to start a Roth because of sports. He hasn't been able to get enough working hours in order to have a Roth. You do have to have some working hours to get a Roth.
Okay.
Hmm.
See, and that I didn't know.
Yep. You do have to be, you do have to have some working hours. I don't know the exact numbers. I'd have to go look, but you do
Mm-hmm.
have to be working somewhat to have a Roth.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, great information.
No
I
problem.
was gonna I had some questions for you, but you answered them all,
Well,
which is
that's great.
great, which is great. Because it allows us to know the resources that are available to us,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And it also with your scenario of how you were able to just knock down the debt within a year, you can come up with a plan no matter what income you're dealing with. So, I mean,
Yep.
whether you're making $1,000 a month to
Hmm.
$2,500 a month, there's always
Yep.
an avenue that you can take, or there's somewhere you can look within your budget and
Hmm.
say, okay, I can stop eating out. I can stop going to the coffee shop.
Hmm.
I may be able to treat myself once a month, but at least I'm able to put that money where it counts,
I
whether
started asking myself tough questions, Nicole. I
Mhm.
said, do you want the pressure of having to come up with almost $1,000 a month? Or would you rather go without for a few months?
Mhm.
I asked myself that question and I said, you know what? I'd rather go without some things for maybe it's up to 2 years, but I
Yeah.
would rather do that than to be stressed out to have another bill on top of my already pretty significant overhead to run the businesses that I have.
Yeah.
So you're talking that's on top of things. So that's on top of all my business expenses. I got another $1,000 to contend with on top of my mortgage, on top of all the other
Wow.
things I pay. And I'm like, you know what? No, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's like you have to really tap into you and your inner knowing, because deep inside, only you know what's stressing you out. But I'll
That
ask you those
is so
questions.
true.
Like,
Mm,
I'll ask you those questions to be like, are you happy living this way? Like, I'm actually gonna, these are things that we actually talk to people about.
mhm.
I don't ignore the big pink elephant in the room. Like, I'm like, let's talk about this, because I'm not really doing you any help by just pushing you along a path that you don't want to be on.
No.
Hmm.
And you've been very, very informative. So I could just imagine how informative you would be, you know, once I'm sitting down with you because I'm coming. I'm
Yeah,
definitely
well, and
coming.
I think we jumped into it and then I pivoted. I'm sorry, but the other thing to think about is to add more income. What are your
Yeah.
variables? How can you control your life? Well, you can
Hmm.
lower your expenses and you can increase income. And there's lots of ways to do that, much in a much smarter way than it was when I was growing up. You actually had to do the physical labor a lot of times to make the extra income. But there's a ton of ways today to make money, through AI, through different things. I'm amazed at what I see my son and some of his friends doing, the
Yeah.
younger generation. Like, they're doing some gig work or some marketing work that they do like in the evenings for companies, and they get paid $25 an hour.
Yeah.
It's not a bad
No, it's
gig.
true because the younger generation, boy, I tell them, I'm like, y'all don't have a clue. We didn't have cell
Mhm.
phones. And the people that had cell phones, they were those big old calm
The
cell
block,
phone
the
with the
block,
big
the
old
block
antenna.
H. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was no real social media. I mean, there was no Facebook or anything. We had
Mhm.
MySpace. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna lie, MySpace was the shit. But
It was. It
that's what
was.
we had. We had MySpace and we had dial-up internet.
We
And
did.
it's like you guys got it easy.
You do. You do. And I think at any point in time you can decide to change your life. I'm a
No,
big
you
believer in
can.
that. I am a huge believer in that. I mean,
Mhm.
the cool part about me is that my back's been against the wall more than one time in life,
Yes,
and I've overcome it. So
yes,
I
you
s-
have.
I I don't say this to be braggadocious. I say this to say, you know what? If I can do it, you can do it too.
No,
If anybody can decide to change their life at any time,
no, and you're
and
so right about that.
there's no judgment. Also, I will say this, and a lot of people think that when you come to financial people, you're going to be judged. Absolutely not. Like,
No.
there's no judgment. My job is to educate you, to provide you good information so that you can make the best decision for your plan in your life. It's not to judge. It's not what we do. And people ask us all the time, do we have minimums? Like, do you have to have a minimum amount of investment to work with us? No. Do some of the platforms that we work with have minimums? Yes. But we
Yeah.
can work with anybody. So,
Yeah. Sorry about that. That was my phone ringing. I
oh,
thought
you're fine.
I had it on mute, but your
I didn't
kids
even
always
hear it.
find
It
a
didn't
way
even
to
come
get
through.
through.
Yeah, I get it.
They
This has
always
been so,
find a way.
I know,
But
this has been so fun today, Nicole.
no,
Thank
it
you.
has. It has. And I truly appreciate you for joining us today on New York Queen Unfiltered. And I want to have you back.
I'd love it.
I know last time we got a lot of questions and then we went
Mhm,
on a little bit of a hiatus. So this is a great way to start our new year.
mhm,
And I hope that our viewers were able to take some practical takeaways from this and maybe start their journey of, financial literacy.
mhm.
And if you have any more questions or you need to see or you want to see a financial planner, go see Julie Laughlin Ayers of Breathe Capital Planning and Divine Abundance. She's definitely is going to be able to help you out.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Have a
Oh,
great
no,
day. It was
thank
great to be
you.
with you today.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye bye.